Let's go. All right. Just give me a minute. You know, before I start, my dad had this thing where he just decided one day that he thought it was wrong that when you talked about my memorial, reminded me, he thought it was so wrong that nobody got to hear their own eulogy. So he set about writing eulogies for all of his friends and sending them to them. I don't know why I remember that right now, but it wasn't well received in many cases. But I'm completely overwhelmed by this evening. And I'm just so thankful for the fact that the Texas AFL-CIO staff forced me into doing this. I just looked around and I see the faces of the people that have come that I've worked with for the last 30 years and sometimes more, and people that have come from so far away. And goddamn, Just Joe is here. Joe, stand up. Let's recognize Just Joe. Y'all don't know him. You don't need to. Let's go. Just Joe is the president of the Idaho AFL-CIO and doing incredible stuff there. And the fact that you would come, brother, is it's so deep. But to see the faces and to feel the friendships and the solidarity and the memories, it's just, I am overwhelmed by it. I really am. So people would ask me, how are you looking forward to the party? And of course I would say, oh yeah, it's going to be great. But I was really nervous, and I couldn't figure out why, that I was so nervous about it. And what I realized was that I was concerned that I was not going to be able to meet the moment of reflecting back the gratitude that I feel for all that has been given me during this journey. And so I hope tonight that I'm able to let you all know how much I appreciate being part of this journey with you, and just how meaningful it is to me to hear the words that people said. To the sponsors, thank you all so much for making this happen and making this even possible. The videos, amazing. Thank you for everybody that did that. I loved it. Do I get a copy of that, Lee? Yeah, I get a copy. I'm going to watch that. I'm going to keep the glow of that moment for whenever I need it. And to the speakers, my goodness. Hanny, thank you for what you said and what you observed and for continuing to lead in really difficult times. But keep at it, brother. Keep at it. You got it. Risha won the award for first tears of the night, so thank you, Risha, and thank you for your friendship. And I always tell you, Risha, that when your voice is in our movement is better, and I just love you and really, really appreciate you being here with us. Thank you for sharing that. And Greg had to go put the baby to bed, so I don't have to say nothing about him. But Lord, that was really cool to have Congressman Kassar bring those words. And Montse, my partner in crime, or where's she at? In the back. But Montse was very beautiful in her words, if not quite truthful, when she said, I didn't hesitate at all to support her when the Biden administration calls. I hesitated for quite some time. I called Joe and I said, Joe, give me a break. Thank you, Montse, and I cannot wait to come to your swearing in. Let's go. And Chris, the story you told is one of the most important stories. Where's Chris at? One of the most important stories, I think, of my whole tenure. And I think that picture, that's my special picture, my picture that I have with myself and Donnie Mayo and Ryan Pollock, and how we all came together and found common ground together to really move something forward. The IBW is such a critical part of our movement. And the other part that you left out was that before I agreed to even do this, the person that I sat down to talk with was Chris Wagner, and to find out, did he bless this? Because I'm not out of central casting for this role. And I needed to know from somebody who knew what was going on whether this was going to work. And your support, your constant support and friendship and guidance has meant the world to me, brother, and I really, really appreciate you. So thank you for that. Governor, I'll say Governor Hinojosa, I could get used to that. She has a big heart. She's overcome a lot of disappointment in her life with grace and with dignity. And so 2 years ago, when I had to walk up to her and tell her, and I wanted to tell her personally, I didn't want it going through the grapevine. When I got a problem, I'm going to address it. Gina, I've moved and I'm no longer your constituent. She hesitated for just a second. Her voice caught a little bit. But she said, Donna's great. You're going to be great, and I support you. And that meant everything to me, Gina. I appreciate you still maintaining our relationship, even in the face of such difficult hardship. I can't believe you're going to be the governor. Okay, so the other thing is, the last time I was in the governor's mansion, even though it's right across the street from the AFL, was when Ann Richards was there. So I fully expect my ass to be in that governor's mansion when you win. And Roro, that was, I'm sure that was very easy and relaxing and nice to do, that you took out time from celebrating Derek's birthday today to make time to deliver those remarks. But your grace and your watching, where's Marcos? Marcos has always said, or not always said, he's starting to say that Rose is now his favorite Levy. And I think I tend to agree, so thank you. Thank you, Rose, and thank you to my whole family, all of y'all who had a role in doing that. So that was really fun to get to sit there and listen. So anyway, when I think about the last 35 years, and yes, whoever said it, I'm old AF at this point, I feel so grateful about so many things, and for every one of you that has been there for me, for those who have been there before me, for this journey of really a lifetime with the Texas AFL-CIO. But here's the one thing I have to say, is that, and the only reason why we agreed to do this thing, is because everything that we've talked about tonight and everything that's been accomplished at the Texas AFL-CIO, it was not one person doing it. We did it together. And I really mean that. As a union, as a movement, and that there's so many people whose work is largely unseen that makes all of this possible. And not just the people who I worked with, but those on whose shoulders we continue to stand. And so it feels good to me tonight that the Texas AFL-CIO calls this the bigger, broader, bolder bash, where we celebrate not just Rick Levy, but the entire Texas labor movement, which has, under really difficult circumstances, together and laughed together and cried together and struggled together to build a movement that has never, ever given up and never will give up. And it's a movement that is growing and that under the leadership of Leonard and Lorraine is on the brink of truly changing this state forever. Okay, so if you will forgive me, I have a few thank yous that I would like to offer. I want to thank the labor folks who taught me what it meant to be union. Like I said, I was not out of central casting. And I remember in the early 80s when my journey started in Tyler, Texas. When I rolled up, I rolled into town in my beat-up little Toyota Tercel. And there I met John Nash, who recently passed. I met Al Smith. I met Clint Hart, who were the pillars of the organized labor in East Texas. I met Kirk Adams. I met Cecile Richards, who were organizing nursing homes in East Texas at that time. And I knew at that point that I was ready to throw my lot in with the Texas labor movement. I feel thankful to Joe Gunn, who hired me for some reason to work at the Texas AFL-CIO, and to Rosa Walker, who taught me how to act. I heard some, yeah, I know what you mean. It all started with like this. If you know, you know. And my sister Becky Moeller, who on so many levels, who showed me what it meant to fight, to not be afraid. We still walk on shards of glass from the ceilings that she broke in this state and in this movement. She was so encouraging to me personally. Becky, if you're here, I say you were so encouraging to me personally and made it your business to look out for my well-being. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm also forever grateful that you taught me how it was appropriate to speak as the president of the Texas AFL-CIO. And how I took those lessons, and it made me a much better leader. I remember one meeting shortly after I came into office, and we were in a tough meeting where somebody was encroaching on our territory, and I said, "I'm not going to stand there and let you cut my tits off." So thank you, Becky. And then John Patrick asked me to be his partner when he became president. And John is in my heart tonight. There was not a kinder, more committed, beautiful human being than John Patrick to ever walk this earth, let alone this labor movement. And his generosity of spirit and his kindness towards me is something that I will always carry with me. And Montserrat, I will just say this, that when you threw in with me, we did some really cool stuff together. That bigger, broader, bolder was actually our first campaign slogan. And you injected such a jolt of energy, vision, and organizing into the state fed. I cannot wait to see all that comes next. To the broader labor movement and to the affiliates, to those that I have worked with, I can't believe that you actually let me into your life and trusted me with these positions. I know some of y'all feel that way too. You were always so patient. I just look around, I see the faces and a million stories. I could keep y'all here all night. Trust me, I could, but I won't. But those of you who were so patient with learning how to act, who put up with some of my more unorthodox ideas and approaches, but who trusted enough to throw in together to really try and build something special. I feel the deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for that. When I first, I think the thing that I feel the most grateful for, are we doing all right on time? Do I have a couple more? We're good? The parking fees are good. Yeah, we had a great radio show. Are any of y'all the two people that listen to our show? Three. Okay, yeah, sorry, great, three. Yeah, my kids were so excited. They would gather around the radio because that's pretty much the only time they heard my voice. That's Daddy. But the thing that I am most grateful for, and this is true, is learning and feeling what solidarity really means. I remember my first speech I gave as an officer. I'd look out over the crowd and I was completely terrified. What was going to happen? And that came to be my favorite thing that I ever did, was to look out over the crowd and to see workers from everywhere across the state, all different trades, all different industries and sectors, colors, races, location, everything. And here we were in one big room, and we're figuring out how we're going to be together to make this state a better place. I love that. I got to feel solidarity that was so deep. And I learned what solidarity really means. And it means so many things. We throw it around. But when you really think about it, yes, it means being on picket lines and strikes when your fellow brothers and sisters are in struggle. That's a given. It also means learning from and stealing shit from other unions and other state feds and them not getting mad when we take their ideas. It means giving space to young leaders and not just watching them grow, but getting to see folks from around the state come together to lift them up. When the storms hit, those were some of the darkest days. When you go into people's homes and they had nothing left, and you'd just be mucking out people's houses. And I will say that I hope nobody ever has to go through the kinds of situations that we went to when those storms hit. But what I'll also say is I hope that everybody has a chance to feel the solidarity that comes from the labor movement after it happens. The way that people reach out. What do you need? What can we do? And just the wave after wave of folks showing up to help is that I would wish the storms on no one, but I would wish that feeling on everyone. And then the other part of the solidarity that's really hard is the solidarity to trust each other, to struggle with each other, to figure out what is it that we have in common and why is that greater than what separates us, knowing that we're stronger together. So many splits and dissensions that I heard about in other states never really happened here. We couldn't afford it. But it's a tribute to the leaders here that we could have differences where we always came back together in the end. And I'm just going to talk about two little things about that, and then I'll be done, almost. Risha talked about Kerrville. It was Kerrville, that's the town, Risha, where we had the idea that we would get leaders from all over the state. Charlie, you were there, right? We would get folks from all over the state, and we would come together, and we would decide what we wanted to be when we grew up here in Texas as a labor movement. And that was some of the most intense conversations I think that I've ever been a part of. Am I right? We were arguing about these core issues. What is the labor movement? What is the labor movement? Are we just about our jobs? Are we about our members? And where do you draw the line? And where do you do that? And there was probably 30 people in that room, and there was about 33 different opinions. But we came up with a document and a plan to move forward where everybody felt like their vision was reflected in that, and that they were all willing to throw in to make those plans a reality. And that, brothers and sisters, is solidarity. And then probably the darkest moment of my career was after the 2020 COPE convention, where we endorsed a couple of very pro-union candidates, but candidates who were supportive of the Green New Deal. And Donnie Mayo, I'm calling you out, Donnie. We good? Huh? Imagine that. Came up to me and said, we're thinking of getting out of the AFL-CIO, that we cannot believe that the AFL-CIO would take a position that directly was aimed at putting my members out of work. And, I explained, of course, that I didn't do the endorsement. It was the members, it was the affiliates. Didn't help. And I said, Donnie, would you give me the chance to come down and talk to you and your members and understand what the concerns are and figure out how we build something together? And Greg Lucero and Donnie and the folks invited me into their union hall. Most of them invited to me. One of them told me that they'd rather kick my ass than let me in the union hall. And we had a conversation. It wasn't the most pleasant conversation I've ever been in, I'm not going to lie. But they had an excellent point, which is that we were sitting there and serving politicians who came to get our support, and we were not having our agenda address of what we need as workers. Is that fair, Don? And so I said, yeah, I take responsibility. Climate was not an issue that I was particularly interested in, given that like 80% of our members work in fossil fuels. But that's an exaggeration. But what Donnie said was absolutely right. And so I said, Donnie, would you be willing to be part of a process where we come up with what our position is on jobs and climate, and then we'll take that to the politicians rather than we just sit here and get split up when they come and ask our support. And to your credit, the IBEW, which probably has more at stake, the steel workers, who have more at stake, the plumbers and pipe fitters, who have more at stake, every single union in this federation supported the creation of the Texas Climate Jobs Project, which puts jobs and climate together and lets folks know that we cannot make this energy transition to the extent it happens on the back of working people. And that and we all came together and we're pulling on the same rope. It's not everybody agreeing with everything, but that, brothers and sisters, is solidarity. That is solidarity. To feel like you're part of a process where people are coming together and understanding what we have in common, rather than what divides us, and that we're stronger together, is something that I am completely amazed that I get to be even a part of. So tonight is a celebration of all that solidarity, and I hope a commitment to going forward and continuing to build our movement. And then finally, I'll say this, is that the Texas AFL-CIO staff is simply an incredible group of human beings who do so much with so little and make it so fun to do it together. That, okay, I think I have some good qualities, but I wouldn't want to work for my ass. And they not only worked with me, but they welcomed me into their lives. They gave over and beyond what anybody had a right to expect to make this work. They've put in incredible work to make this beautiful event here tonight, for which I am incredibly grateful. Oh, and by the way, they're also running the Ruth Ellinger School this weekend, and oh, by the way, we just swore in Senator Taylor Ramett. And I feel, and then also check out my shoes. That was my gift from our staff, and they've all signed it. So I'm basically walking all over them every day. But seriously, to each and every one of you, I feel like I've tried to tell you a million times how much you mean to me personally, and how much I respect you and your work. And in front of this whole gathering, I just want to say that you have a very mighty resource in the Texas AFL-CIO staff, and I love in each and every one of you, and thank you so much for your part in making this journey a success. And Ed and Vivian, that counts you too, okay? Not working. Leonard and Lorraine, thank you so much for stepping up to lead so this old dude can ride off into the sunset knowing that this movement is in good hands. Any organizer's number one job is organizing themselves out of a job. So I think, Gina, I don't think I tricked them, but I am extremely grateful for y'all being willing to step up and lead this movement. You both bring such unique capacity to lead this movement forward, and I just am so, to sit there and to not have to worry that everything we've tried to do is going to be out the window is a real blessing, and I am so proud of both of you and can't wait to see what happens next. So thank you. Okay, and this is, I'm a very brave man. Every time we go to one of these events, my bride says, "Don't you be saying that stuff about me." But, Rubenette, this is a journey that never would have even began without you. And I don't mean it in the traditional sense of, oh, you've been there to support me, because you've been there as my partner. You've been there as my thought partner. You have been generous of spirit, even when it takes from your own path. You have been flexible with all the demands that this job places on us. You have been gracious about the impact that this job takes on all of us. And I love you more now than I ever did at the very beginning, and I thank you so much for being with me on the journey. So thank you, my brother. All right, so the last thing I'll say is that Leonard always notices that this work in Texas is really, really hard. As a union organizer, as a union leader in Texas, nothing comes easy. Everything is a struggle. And yet, there is no greater gift that I feel than have been in the struggle with you all. Because, Rose, you talked about a justified existence. What greater purpose could there be than delivering our children and our grandchildren to society where every individual is treated with dignity and respect? And that if we can build a labor movement in Texas that is strong enough and powerful enough to change Texas, then we can change this country forever. And if we change this country forever, we change the world. And at this point, it's up to y'all. But I just say thank you for letting me be a part of it for as long as you did. And thank you all so very much for tonight. I hope you all have fun. Thank you very much.